Now it's my turn. I know that anyone who creates content will always be criticized, and many of those criticisms are fair. I get dates wrong, I confuse players, you point out the mistake, and that's fine. But the truth is that most criticism comes from my club allegiance. And for those who still don't know or can't figure it out yet, I'm a Porto fan. And you know what? I don't have big aspirations of getting on TV with impartial journalism, nor do I have the patience to do what many pundits do, spend their life hiding the club they support. I love football, the atmosphere of lower league games, local rivalries, collecting cards, stickers, scarves, visiting random stadiums. Above all, I love Portuguese football. Nowadays, I barely follow other leagues. Portuguese football is my entertainment. But loving something doesn't mean being blind to its flaws. Sometimes it's because I care so much that those flaws annoy me even more. And I'm not just talking about football itself. I mean those who, like me, get swallowed by this small but incredible football underworld. So today, this video won't be informative. Today, I'm turning the mirror onto you. I'm going to roast the myths, the quirks, the nonsense of the Portuguese supporter. Gentlemen, and the one or two ladies that watch my videos, welcome to the roast of Portuguese football. And of course, if we're talking about Portuguese football, and as the journalist the community expects me to be, I had to start with Benfica, the biggest club in the country. Almost half the population supports them. They have by far the most championships, the best financial situation, and yet they still always play the role of the underdog club. Because what would it be for me to make a video criticizing Benfica? I'm a Porto fan, therefore automatically a moron. Either I praise Benfica or I shouldn't even have a football channel. But listen, I understand. Every news program starts with Benfica news. If a young player from Seychelles has a decent game, it's front page news. It's logical. If half your audience supports a club, you better have at least half your content appealing to that fan base. The problem is when that turns into ridiculous headlines just to sell. Like, Benfica could seriously be European champions, Klopp could come manage Benfica, but when I say that maybe not even Mourinho can save Benfica, oh no, that's blind clubism. It can't just be me looking at the last 10 seasons of the former special one with a rational view, no. Mourinho joined Benfica not in a desperate attempt to stay relevant and save Rui Costa's ass. No, it was because it was his dream to manage a European giant. To him, Benfica is special. So special that after 5 consecutive wins, when they didn't offer him a better contract, he walked off to manage Sporting. That example of loyalty and coherence we all know so well. And to finish my spotlight on the club of the people, we have to expose hypocrisy. Whenever Porto is talked about, it's all about Fruta, Apito Dourado, Pinto da Costa's corruption. And I'm not here to question any of that, but fuck, you have to have some nerve. Benfica has been involved in loads and loads of corruption cases, and right now they have a presidential candidate with legal problems as a serious option. But no, it's the guys from the north who are the bastion of corruption. Now, to be fair, that hypocrisy isn't exclusive to Benfica. Porto, despite being scrutinized for over a decade for all of Papa Pinto da Costa's dealings, still claim to be the victims of the system. It's the capital that wants to harm them, it's the press that wants to harm them, it's the referees, the federation, the league, it's always everyone against Porto. For me, the most ironic example of blue and white hypocrisy is the hatred towards Jonas. For those who haven't seen my video about him, I hated Jonas with a passion. I give you my word that as a teenager, if I was given a choice between 5 minutes in a room with Megan Fox or 5 minutes in a room with Jonas, I'd choose the second option just to break his back for good. While people my age went to casa or escada well below the age of 18, I went out at night to graffiti 8 messages about Jonas. And it wasn't just me, it was the anti-Jonas and anti-Benfica culture of the time. The joke? That 2 years later Porto signs an Iranian 5 times worse than Jonas. Taremi was ridiculous. A guy barely touches Taremi and it's penalty for Porto. And suddenly, no one criticizes divers anymore. But if that was the only thing I had to point out about Porto fans, you think you were safe because I'm a Porto fan myself? Nana! I don't forget those slow-paced games against Moreirense, Feirense, those typical saison ball moments, and down there, in that infamous stand, there was always the chant. E quem não salta é lampião. In a game that had nothing to do with Benfica. But then they say it's a lie when Benfica fans call Porto fans anti-Benfica. It's not a lie, at all. I've been in the middle of the good, the bad, and the ugly of the blue and white world. And let me tell you, most Porto fans would rather finish third and not see Benfica crowned champion than finish second and see the rival lift the trophy. Finally, we have to talk about Mística, the raça de dragão. What made me, without a Porto family, choose Porto. For me, Mística was always the ability to overcome. Never throwing in the towel, clenching your teeth and fighting to the end, drawing and feeling defeated. That captivated me, but I'll admit, looking in from the outside, the raça de dragão often seems more like intimidation. Intimidating referees, players, coaches until they get exactly what they wanted. For years, the antics of the Super Dragões were defended. It took them turning against their own fans for many Porto supporters to pull their heads out of their asses and realize the Super were not a symbol of Mística, they were just a perpetuation of criminality with love for Porto as a facade. Personally, I've never liked Super Dragões. I've always thought they were too hateful, too focused on everything but football. And over the years, that stopped being Benfica fan undercover talk and became almost a fact. But you know the worst? I personally know people who say macaco is needed. Porto isn't the same without Super Dragões. So, without a shred of shame, to any Porto fan who thinks that, em bom português, espero que te fodas. Sporting fans, you're liking this so far? You're comfortable? I left you for third place in this roast to match your status among the big three. I hope you don't mind. Realistically, there isn't much hypocrisy to point out about the Lions. In fact, there isn't any huge corruption case, at least in football, involving Sporting. But saying you are always armed when you've had a debt of nearly 100 million euros forgiven, man. One thing is certain, and I know this may shock some Sporting fans. You may be the historically most honest club among the big three, but you're not the biggest club in Portugal. You don't have the most championships, the most European titles, the most Super Cups, or even the most League Cups. And yet, believe it or not, you have a president who says the perception of Sporting as a third big club belongs to the past. Foda-se, man. No, it doesn't. Until Sporting wins 10 championships without their rivals winning another and adds another European title or two, you will always be, factually, the third big club. And no, producing two of Portugal's 3 Ballon d'Or winners doesn't count. Otherwise, by that logic, Santos would be the biggest club in Brazil. Sporting is a historic unstable club, where a coach rarely lasts 2 full seasons, where presidential changes are more frequent than championship wins, but now that they've won 2 consecutive league titles, something both Porto and Benfica have done several times in the past 25 years, every Sporting fan now wants everyone to throw their wands in the air and acknowledge them as the kings of Portuguese football. I give them credit for the recent seasons, don't get me wrong. There isn't much to criticize, and among the big three, they are, generally speaking, the most civilized. At its core, Sporting is like that friend who promises to change, does everything right for a few months, and then goes back to the same old self. And so, it continues, the third biggest club with pride. Deep down, amid all the hatred, mockery and criticism, the truth is that most Benfica, Porto and Sporting fans support their clubs because they are big, because they win, because they have status, because they have trophies. Those same fans click on sensationalist content with clickbait titles that outrage them just so they can leave a hateful comment criticizing my service to Portuguese football, while on the days I post videos about stories like Beira-Mar reaching the cup final, debates about mid-sized clubs, or weekly analysis giving equal spotlight to smaller teams in the league, almost nobody cares. I don't mind criticism, but I find it ridiculous to be criticized for something I never claimed to be. I have my own vision, and I make a point of living that in my videos. Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we won't, and that's why civil debates exist. Debates I take great pleasure in encouraging. So I will keep using clickbait titles. I will put joke or trash or whatever in the thumbnail, and if I think your new coach is going to fail, I'll make sure it's obvious. And no matter how much people say they'll unsubscribe, they will keep clicking, like poorly trained dogs unable to resist the impulse. And to those who think this channel can be more than just an echo of Portuguese TV sensationalism, I will keep being here for you, giving a voice to clubs, players, seasons, and coaches that few bother to talk about, because in the end, that's what drives me, that's what motivates me. I just ask the real ones to understand that to reach more people, to keep growing, I have to touch on certain topics, I have to play the game. But one thing is certain, I will never stop being myself to please anyone. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk, I'll see you around.